So, if you're new to my channel and you don't know anything about me, I'm Hazel-Eyed-Rose and I'm a singer-songwriter and an entrepreneur from Birmingham, UK. But my life hasn't always been the way it is now, and I haven't always been the most positive and optimistic person as I am today. About 15, 20 years ago, I went through one of the wrongest life paths you could ever imagine. I went through the worst, the worst life path. When it felt like it was like a death sentence, it was the worst life path you could ever imagine for someone to go through my eyes. And this is just my story and my perspective on what happened to me and how I overcome everything that was sent to destroy me. So we'll start from college. So I went to college and I was always very friendly, very trusting, and I thought that people would like you if you're a nice person and you look nice and you don't do anything wrong to anyone. And I just thought everyone would like me because that's how I grew up. I used to think that everyone will like you if you're pretty, if you're a nice person, no one will be horrible to you, and that thought never crossed my mind. Little did I know that it was the complete opposite. If you look a certain way and are also intelligent and have a lot going for you, then people around you, especially girls at the college who are around the same age, or younger age, like the same age as you, at that time it was around 17, 18, can see you as a threat and can see you as competition and can set out to make your life a living hell. And I didn't expect any of the bullying to occur. As I said, I thought because I looked nice and I was a nice person that nothing bad would ever happen to me, and that was me being too trusting and too naive. So I'd say the bullying started off as, you know, at the bus stop, standing, I would be on my own and the girls would be around me like a group, and it would be like name calling, belittling, making fun of me, making jokes. And at the time they probably thought it was funny because I would laugh along with them. But really, to hear name calling, jokes about me, against me, about me as a person every single day for the whole of the 2 years while I was at college, it had a severely negative impact on my mental health. So much so that I would escape my reality at college by smoking weed heavily. And I would smoke this with another guy at college who was supposed to be my friend, but he was just as bad as the girls, really. He was involved with the gang of bullies as well, but he'd also be my friend with me on my own without them. So basically, each of these bullies, when they were on their own with me, individually, they would be nice to me. They'd be different people. It's when they all got together in their little clique, in their little gang, that they'd all gang up, switch up on me, change, insult me, ridicule me, humiliate me, make jokes about me, make me feel less of a person. I ended up having low self-esteem, feeling really insecure, when initially I started off college with feeling the most confident, optimistic, happy-go-lucky person. I was a completely different person midway through college, and at the end of my college, all because of these bullying girls and this one boy who would gang up on me, bully me constantly, continuously, every day. And I didn't realise at the time, but they were bullying me not only because of the way I looked, but because I was highly creative and highly intelligent. But I never knew this at the time. I used to think I was really stupid, really thick, really dumb. I had nothing going for me. But little did I know that the bullies who were used to gang up on me could see my potential before I could even see it. And they saw my potential, they saw everything I had going for me, and they saw what I was capable of. But I didn't know what I was capable of. My confidence was so low. I thought my work was so rubbish. I hated group work. I hated teamwork. I worked much better on my own without all these negative bullies, haters around me, or, vindictive people causing me distress and harm. I worked better on my own, and I was quite an introvert, really, but I gave the impression that I was extroverted in the way I dressed and the way I come across, but really I was quite liking to be on my own, working on my own without other bullies around me stealing my ideas, passing them off as their own, and bullying me and humiliating me every single day. I like to just stay on my own, work on my own, but I was surrounded by people who were hating on me and making my life a living hell. So, escaping my reality and smoking weed heavily at college, sometimes being late for lesson, smoking weed. I don't know what I was doing because it just made me feel so paranoid at the time. It made me feel, it made things be funny as well, because like weed can make you feel high, make things feel like humorous, funny, extremely funny. But I used to go into severe states of paranoia as well, and I didn't know if this was normal, or if this was a normal side effect, or if everybody had it, or if everybody felt like that. But it used to happen to me. Anyway, I continued like this through my college. I'd get high on the weed and I'd feel really low and get really depressed. But I managed to struggle through college, get through college, pass, not with the marks I wanted. I think I passed with a merit when I could have easily got a distinction. But because of the bullying and the distress, and because I wasn't focused on my studies, and because I used to skip college a lot of the time, I didn't focus, and I had some time off for depression. I did not pass with a distinction, I passed with a merit. And I'm not sure if my other friends, I think they must have got higher marks than me, which was obviously their intention. Their intention was to bring me down so that I couldn't succeed in the industry that I was training in, so that I couldn't succeed in what I was, planning to do for my future. Their plan was to bring me down because in their eyes, I thought I was above them. But in all reality, they knew I was above them, but I had no idea that I actually was. So after college, I had no clue what I wanted to do, if I wanted to go to uni, what uni I wanted to go in, because obviously my mind was so frazzled, whereas my bullies were working towards their dreams and goals. They knew exactly what they wanted to do, and each one of them, there was a girl and a boy at the time, they called me to go to uni with them and study what they were studying, or obviously tell me to choose whatever I wanted to study, and I'd go with them. So first of all, I went with the girl, and we got ourselves a house there, which my mum organised. So this girl, this bully, was a user. She used me and my mum to get some housing over there so that we could live over there. But really, I was still being bullied while I was over there, because while I was there, I continued to smoke weed, this time with her, and she would invite people round to the house, other men round to the house. Well, I wouldn't say men, they were boys, because we was all around similar ages. And yeah, well, young adults, young men, because we was all around the age of 17, 18, 19 at that point in time, something like that. And she would belittle me in front of them. She would make me feel like less of a person. She would insult me. She would make out like she was better than me by telling stories and making out that I didn't know anything about my culture, about my race, which I probably didn't, because I wasn't raised in the same way as her. And she would use that as a way to highlight all my negative flaws, all my negative points, and point out all the negative things about me, all the stuff I didn't know about and she did know about, because she was raised in a different way to me, and she didn't acknowledge that I came from a different upbringing, a different background to her. Even though we might have been from the same race, I was raised in a completely different way to her, in a completely different community to her. So she was saying things from her viewpoint, and she was making me out to be like some kind of whitewashed Asian person, which, you know, in many people's eyes, maybe that might be how they view me. But if people knew that I wasn't raised in the same way like them, my family dynamics weren't the same as theirs. For example, I had white family members in my family who were not related to me, but they lived within my family and they were involved in my upbringing. Even though I told them that, they didn't want to acknowledge that, because that gave me some kind of upper advantage, that gave me some kind of diversity to my upbringing, to my story, and they wanted to make out like I was just whitewashed, I didn't know a thing about my race, and they didn't want to take the way I was raised into what's the word, into effect. They didn't want to take that into consideration, into realizing that was why I was the person I was. So we continued to smoke weed. I continued on the course. I don't even know what course I was doing. It wasn't what I wanted to do. I think I went along with her and studied what she wanted to study. I was still, you know, not aware of my talents, even though she probably was aware of mine. I studied along with her. I think at the time I didn't even know what I was doing. We were still smoking weed. Eventually I thought to myself, I'm not happy here. I don't want to prolong this any longer. So I called my mum and told her I wanted to leave uni. I left uni. I left her. I wasn't bothered about what she was going through. I couldn't give a shit what she was going through, even though she wanted me to feel sorry for her for anything she was going through at the time, because she had her own problems, but really she deserved it. So, you know, all good luck to her, but I was better off without her. So I left her at that uni. But at the time I was still very vulnerable and still in a state of my mind wasn't all there, because I was high and low smoking weed. Anyway, I was at home, and then another one of the bullies from my past contacted me. He contacted me and told me to go to uni with him. Can you see a pattern here? Can you see how this kind of controlling bullying was continuing past me leaving college? I can just see it now, how the way it was mapping out, how these bullies were controlling my life and taking advantage of me. And I can see as I'm talking it through, this is like therapy for me in a way. So he called me to his uni and I went with him, and I felt so out of place. It was in a really rough area. I felt really out of place. I did not like the area. I felt unsafe. I studied what I thought I wanted to study at the time. I studied writing and philosophy, but really I should have gone into media, something more creative. But as I said, because of all the bullying, because of all the things I had went through previously at college, I was not thinking right. I was not thinking like the strong, independent woman I am today. So I studied there. We continuously smoked weed or skunk, whatever it was, heavily smoking this. So I went through highs of feeling high, getting really low, feeling really paranoid. It was like proper paranoia, proper paranoia. And I stayed with this bully. He wasn't really bullying me that much at the time, but it's like, in a way, these bullies were calling me to be with them, to stop me from pursuing what was my life, what was my life goal, what was I was supposed to do. And I think I would have been really creative, like as I am now, making videos, editing, being a content creator, being really creative. But all that was stifled because I was following each of these bullies. Let me just have some water. And anyway, I eventually called my mum again, or my dad, I can't remember, and said, look, I want to leave, I'm not happy here. I left that uni, came back to my home, back to live with my mum and dad's. And that's when I stayed there for a bit, and everything's a bit hazy, but all I remember is I was sort of in a relationship with this guy at the time. I think this was an ongoing relationship that was going while I was at uni as well, but because my mind, and I used to come back from uni on the weekends and I'd see him. Anyway, this guy at the time, it wasn't a healthy relationship. He was a user as well. I'm not sure if I used to smoke with him, but he was no good for me. And anyway, I found out that he was seeing someone else at the same time as me, and that he actually got married to someone whilst I was with him. And that was the final straw that sent me over the edge. That was when I had my nervous breakdown. So my mind just switched. I had a nervous breakdown and I had a psychotic episode. And because I didn't know anything about psychosis, about psychotic episodes, literally it was the most scariest moment of my life. I was hearing abusive voices, almost the same way in which I was bullied. These abusive voices were calling me names detrimental to my mental health, humiliating me, and then they switched to nice voices. So the breakdown and the hallucinations and the psychotic episode was in relation to the weed I was smoking and the bullying, because it was all a complete state of fear. I was in a complete state of paranoia, hearing abusive voices, then they were nice to me, then they were mean to me, then they were nice to me, just exactly the same way as the bullying. Because I didn't know what was going on and my family didn't know what was going on, it was such a scary time for me. Anyway, I think I must have been off the drugs by then. I was not smoking any more cannabis, any more skunk anymore. But the mental health was so severe that eventually my mum called the mental health services and they sectioned me and sent me to a mental institution, where I think that was when I was sectioned. And they said to me that I was suffering with a psychotic episode and that I needed to be in there for my own safety. So I was in there for about a month, and I did see myself getting a little bit better, but really I wasn't fully recovered. But mental health services said I was well enough to, come out and live a normal life. So what happened to me then was I came out of the mental health services and I must have been off and about in Birmingham in town centre. I was not right in my head. I was not thinking straight. And I met my partner, who was my partner at the time, who turned out to be my abusive partner at the time. I'm not with him now, but entered into a domestically abusive relationship which lasted 4 years. This abusive relationship lasted 4 years, and it was the same kind of theme: abuse, where he'd be nice to me, then he'd be horrible to me. So the abusive theme continued. It was like being abused all the time from the college till now. So he would be nice to me, like, so I'd stay with him because I'd remember the nice person he was. Then the beating would start, then the severe beating would start, and then he'd be nice again, and then he'd make me feel sorry for him. So I'd be like his caregiver, I'd be looking after him, I'd be stopping him from ending up killing himself, because he used to be an alcoholic and a drug addict, and he would smoke cigarettes and he would leave them in his mouth and he'd fall asleep, and if he would have fell asleep it would have fell out onto the floor and he could have burnt the place down. So I'd be constantly waiting for him to fall asleep so I could take the cigarette butt out of his mouth and put it out, so that he wasn't causing a fire within the flat. So it was like an abusive relationship, but I was his caregiver as well. And this went on for 4 years. I also became addicted to Class A drugs during this time with him. He was an alcoholic as well. I didn't really drink that much alcohol, but when I became addicted to the Class A drugs, they were so addictive that I could not come off them. It was so difficult to come off them. And I was being controlled by him, because it's like he got me addicted to these drugs, so he had a control over me, so that I was still a victim, so I was still his victim, and I was vulnerable, and I was in a state of that I needed him in order to feed my drug habit, and I needed him in order to survive, because even though my family were around in the background telling me to, come back, to leave him, I couldn't see the abuse at the time. He was trying to get me away from my friends' family. I don't think I had many friends. He was trying to isolate me from everyone that was caring for me at that time. And he did a pretty good job, because he was my world and I looked up to him, and he was controlling towards me, and yeah, I saw no way out. So I'll fast forward to the last year of our relationship. During the last year of our relationship, I was pregnant, and at the time, for an outlooker looking on, probably thought this is the worst thing that could ever happen to you. You're in an abusive relationship, you're not in your right mind, and now you're having a baby. But in all reality, having my daughter was the best thing that ever happened to me. She saved my life, and she turned me in to the strong survivor I am today. So basically, when I was pregnant with my daughter, social services got involved because they heard about my partner and how dangerous he was, and they were worried about me and my safety, and they wanted to ask me some questions about him, and information came to light, which I wasn't aware of everything. It came to light when we were going through court proceedings and when we were going through our meetings, because we had to, me and my mum had to fight against my ex-partner in order for us to have parental responsibility, have responsibility of my daughter, and make sure he had no contact with me or my daughter or my family. So after all the court proceedings were over, obviously I was back with my mum and making a go of things with my daughter and my family, and I was still vulnerable to the abuse that I had suffered. I was still not a complete survivor at that time, because I was still suffering from the side effects, from the after effects of all the emotional and physical abuse. So my mum gave me an ultimatum, and she said, it's either my daughter and my family or him. I can't have him and see my daughter at the same time, which is what I probably would have wanted to do, because I was thinking, oh no, what's he going to do without me? He's not going to survive without me. He's not going to live without me, because I was still brainwashed by him. I was still controlled by him, and he was still controlling me even though I was no longer with him. But something inside me, and I really believe that this was God speaking to me, made me realise that no, my daughter is the most important and precious thing that I have got. And I got the strength, the strong strength, to cut all ties with my ex-partner and never talk to him again, and live a life with my daughter and my family. And I did that, but it was not an easy thing. It wasn't something I could do on my own and with just my mum saying that to me. That strength I got, I believe it came from God, because when I was being abused through all that time, through the abusive relationship, he was quite a religious person, and we were both trying to find God at the time, but I couldn't let God into my life, because I was thinking, how can I believe in God when my partner at the time, such a hypocrite, would go to church, then he'd beat me up, then we'd go to church, then he'd beat me up, then we'd go to Bible studies, then he'd beat me up. So I was trying to have a relationship with God, but something was telling me, no, how can I believe in God when this person who I love is so fake and is telling me to believe in God but living a double life? Anyway, it was only at the time where I had left him, that God entered my life. God couldn't enter my life while I was with him, while I was being abused, because I was blind to everything that was going on around me. But I do know, looking back now, that God has saved my life on a number of occasions. On a number of occasions where I could have lost my life, where I was beaten so bad, kicked in the head so bad while he was wearing his steel boots, and hit with a bat so bad where I was bleeding, where I could have been left unconscious. But I survived. And making that choice to leave him and choose my daughter was like saying to God, yes, God, I choose you, I choose my daughter, and I believe in myself and I believe in my abilities to become a strong survivor. And I became the strong survivor that I am today. Not only did I go on to have my own holistic and beauty therapy business and help heal and protect and cater and look after people within my business as a healing, massage and holistic therapist. But then I went on to pursue my career as a singer-songwriter in 2020, where I also became a YouTuber and a children's book author. And I truly believe that everything that happened to me, everything that happened to me on my life path was meant to happen to me. Because if you are a chosen one too, then you know that your path is harder because your calling is higher. My path was harder because my calling is higher. I am meant to serve humanity in some way, shape or form. I did not go through all the life lessons I went through. I did not go through all the heartache, all the lessons I went through in order for me to just go and work at Tesco's and do nothing behind and nothing and be nothing and serve humanity in no way. There's nothing wrong with working in Tesco's, but what I'm saying to you is if you are a chosen one, you are destined for greater. You are destined for greater things, and only a chosen one will resonate with this. If you are a chosen one, you will know that your calling is higher and you are meant to be on the path to serve humanity, to either be an entrepreneur of some sort, work in the creative fields, and work to make other people's lives better because of what you have been through. I am now using my life path, my life lessons, and my life journey to help other people. I am now using everything I went through to become who I am today. And who'd have thought it? Everything my college bullies stopped me from doing. They stopped me from moving forward within the media industry. They stopped me from moving forward with my writing, with all my gifts and talents. And look at me now. I am now a singer-songwriter. I am now a YouTuber, and I am now a content creator and children's book author. Isn't it funny how what comes around goes around? Isn't it funny how God works in mysterious ways? All the bullies, all the abusers that were sent my way to take me off God's path, all the bullies and all the abusers that were sent to destroy me have only made me stronger, have only made me into the strong survivor I am today, have only given me the strength that I get from myself and from God, have only given me that strength and courage to succeed in anything that comes my way. So I just want you to know, if you are going through the wrongest life path, it's not the end. If you are suffering with mental health problems, it's not the end. And if you are going through a domestically abusive relationship, it's not the end. There is hope out there for you. Coming from a survivor of all the things I've talked about, coming from a survivor of mental health, bullying and domestic abuse, there is hope out there for you. So don't class yourself as a victim. Don't class yourself as someone who will never make it, as someone who has got no gifts and talents, and someone who or as someone who is unworthy of love, because you are worthy of love. You are worthy to receive all the goodness and all the love that God, universe, angels, and all that loving source energy has for you. God chose you, and He chose you for a reason. He chose you for the longest life path because He knows you are one of the strongest soldiers. You are able to deal with and conquer the strongest life path. You are the strongest survivor He knows. That is why He gave you the strongest life path, the wrongest life path, because He knows you are capable to overcome anything that He throws your way. So don't remain a victim. Tell your survival story.